Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. I'm Shivan Jarna. This is Speed News. Let's start. A day after the US and Iran agreed to have indirect talks in Oman, the US has confirmed that envoy Steve Witkoff would lead the talks from the American side. However, the State Department has set a tough line ahead of the talks. Spokeswoman Tammy Bruce underlined that there's a meeting on Saturday, but there's no negotiations. Bruce warned that if Iran doesn't agree to a deal, it will be very, very bad for them. In a veiled reference to a military attack, Bruce said Trump would prefer a deal with Iran than doing the obvious. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, who concluded his visit to the White House, has said that he agrees with US President Trump that Iran cannot have nuclear weapons. In a video message, Netanyahu went on to add that this could be done via a Libya-style agreement where Iranian nuclear facilities are destroyed and all equipments are dismantled under American supervision. Netanyahu said that if Iran continued to drag the talks, the second option would be military strikes. The White House says nearly 70 countries have reached out looking to begin negotiations on reducing the impact of Trump's tariff policy. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has said that the deals will be made if they benefit American workers and address chronic trade deficits. Trump has directed his team to work on tailor-made deals. Israel's Supreme Court has temporarily blocked Netanyahu's decision to dismiss Rana as the head of their internal intelligence agency, that is Shin. The top court has given the Israeli cabinet and Attorney General a deadline to find a solution to the government's hotly contested decision to sack the domestic security chief. The ruling came after a 10-hour court hearing where petitions against Barr's firing were debated. The petitions cited improper procedure and conflict of interest on Netanyahu's part. US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has warned that the United States will not allow China to jeopardize the operations of the Panama Canal. Speaking alongside Panama's President Mulino, Hegseth said that the Panama Canal faces ongoing threats from China, but the US and Panama together would take back the canal and keep it open to all nations. The Chinese embassy in Panama issued a statement refuting Hegseth's claim that Beijing interferes in the operations of the canal, calling on Washington to halt blackmail and plundering of Panama and other countries in the region. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has rejected a new Israeli proposal to control aid deliveries in Gaza. The UN chief warned that Israel's plan risks further controlling and callously limiting aid down to the last calorie and grain of flour. Guterres made it clear that the UN will not participate in any arrangement that does not fully respect humanitarian principles. No aid has been delivered to the Palestinian enclave of some 2.1 million people since the 2nd of March. Israel has said that it would not allow the entry of goods and supplies into Gaza until Hamas released all remaining hostages. US continues to pound Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. Fresh US strikes in Yemen's western province of Hodeidah killed at least 6 people and wounded 13 others, according to the Houthi media. Footage released by the Houthi-run Al Masirah TV showed people rushing to they show people rushing wounded people to ambulances and rescuers searching through the rubble using the light from their mobile phones. The strikes come a day after the rebel group claimed attacks on Israeli and American warships. A fresh war of words has erupted between Elon Musk and Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro. During an interview, Navarro spoke about Tesla and said that the company was essentially a car assembler since majority of its parts were foreign made. Elon Musk reacted to Navarro's remarks, calling him a moron, and said that his comments were demonstrably false. In another post, the billionaire shared a link to a report of the most American-made cars in the country, defending his company Tesla. In the same post, Musk wrote, and I quote, Navarro is dumber than a sack of bricks. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has warned that China is closely watching the ongoing war in Ukraine and that the outcome of Russia's aggression could have a substantial impact on security in Asia. Speaking at Keio University in Tokyo, Rutte said the conflict highlighted the links in the European and Pacific security environments. In a veiled reference to China's aggressive maneuvers in the Taiwan Strait, the NATO chief said, and I quote here, if we allow Putin to use force to achieve his aims, it will not go unnoticed. It's Ukraine today. It could be East Asia tomorrow. The Trump administration has frozen over $1 billion funding for Cornell University and $790 million for Northwestern University. According to U.S. authorities, both schools are being investigated for civil rights violations. Last month, the Trump administration had sent a letter to 60 universities and warned that it could bring enforcement actions if a review determined that the schools had failed to stop anti-Semitism. Trump has attempted to crack down on pro-Palestinian campus protests and had cancelled $400 million in funding to Columbia University, the epicenter of the pro-Palestinian protests. Harvard University plans to borrow $750 million from Wall Street as part of contingency preparations. The development comes days after the president of the U.S. announced a review of $9 billion in federal grants and contracts to the Ivy League school. Last week, Trump administration had written to Harvard University listing conditions that the university must meet to receive federal money. Harvard has a $53 billion endowment, the largest of any U.S. university. Students and several faculty members have called on the university leadership to resist demands from the Trump administration. Nearly 100 people have been killed and 160 have been injured following a roof collapse at a popular nightclub in Dominican Republic's capital, Santo Domingo. The incident took place during a performance by renowned singer Ruby Perez, who was also trapped in the rubble. Eyewitnesses say the roof collapsed almost an hour after the concert began, a little before midnight. According to reports, over 1,000 people were in the club when the tragedy struck. More than 370 people The more than 370 rescue personnel are scouring debris to search for survivors. Meanwhile, an investigation is underway to ascertain the reason behind the collapse.
De manera que los trabajos
.2611 mastermind accused Tahawwur Rana is all set to be extradited to India and arrive in the country as early as tonight. An NIA team was sent to the United States to bring him home after all illegal formalities for Rana's extradition were completed. However, it is not clear whether Rana would be flown to New Delhi or whether he'll be taken to Mumbai. The development comes a day after the US Supreme Court denied Rana's plea seeking an emergency stay on his extradition. The court's order had cleared the way for his handover to India. A 3-year-old girl has become Mexico's first human fatality from H5N1 bird flu. The girl was diagnosed with the virus on the 1st of April. Mexico's Ministry of Health said in a statement that it had traced 38 people who had contact with the deceased girl and all tested negative for the virus. According to the World Health Organization, increases and infections in humans can cause severe disease with a high mortality rate. It says human cases detected so far are mostly likely like people who had close contact with infected birds and other animals or contaminated environments. North India continues to sizzle under a heat wave with temperatures expected to soar across several states. The IMD, India Meteorological Department, has issued an orange alert for the states of Gujarat, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. According to the Weather Department, maximum temperature in the national capital, New Delhi, could soar as high as 41 degrees Celsius. The IMD forecasts heat wave to subside over northwest India from April 10th and over Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh from April 11th. The Reserve Bank of Europe recorded the hottest March ever, driving rainfall extremes across a continent which is warming faster than any other. The report released by the Copernicus Climate Change Service says that it was the second hottest March for the world. March was 1.6 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times, extending an anomaly so unusual that scientists are still trying to fully explain it. Scientists had predicted the extreme run of global temperatures would subside after a warming El Nino event peaked in early 2024, but they have stubbornly lingered well in. The Reserve Bank of India's Monetary Policy Committee has cut the repo rate by 25 basis points to 6%. This marks the second rate cut this year. In February, the Indian Central Bank had lowered the repo rate to 6.25% from 6.5%, its first cut in nearly 5 years. This decision comes amid rising global uncertainty, particularly with the implementation of US President Donald Trump's tariffs, which could put further pressure on India's economy. The RBI's shift to an accommodative stance indicates a continued focus on fostering economic growth, especially as the country faces challenges like moderating inflation and external shocks. Donald Trump's sweeping new tariffs have deepened the global trade war. The move sent markets into a tailspin, wiping out nearly $6 trillion from the S&P 500 index in just 4 days, the worst stretch since its inception. Stocks in Asia tumbled, with Japan's Nikkei dropping over 3%, while South Korea's currency hit a 16-year low. Trump claims the tariffs are permanent, yet hints at negotiations with key partners. China is memorable. China, meanwhile, has vowed to fight back, with top brokerages stepping in to civilize market. As allies brace for impact and announced support for key sectors, US consumers could face higher prices. Oil prices plunged to a 4-year low, capping the worst 5-day losing streak in 3 years. This comes as fears of a deepening US-China trade war rattled global markets. Crude has shed nearly 20% since Trump announced sweeping tariffs, with recession concerns fueling the slide. Analysts warn that China's expected oil demand growth, already under pressure, could take a hit if the tariff battle drags on. Meanwhile, oversupply concerns are adding to oil woes, with energy warning of a fragile demand outlook. South Korea has unveiled emergency support measures to cushion its auto industry from Trump's 25% tariff. The $10.18 billion package includes tax cuts, EV subsidies and financing support to offset potential damage, as nearly half of South Korea's auto exports go to the US. The government warned of significant impact due to limited local production in the US and vowed to push for negotiations to avoid being treated unfairly. Hyundai, which just pledged a $21 billion US investment, said that it won't raise prices for now, aiming to shield customers. Analysts fear higher input costs and a bigger blow to the EV supply chain, already reliant on Chinese components. Seoul is also looking to diversify exports towards the global south as it braces for a prolonged tariff standoff.